Time now for the BKL Nightly Roundtable. I'm joined by Carl Jones, Josh Reed. Bills getting ready to take on the Panthers. Guys, the Bills are getting back a couple of what we think will be important defensive line players this week. Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoecht back from suspension. How much of an impact do you think those two guys can make?
I think maybe more so Michael Hoecht. And in particular, his mentality and the way he plays the game. I think this defense lacks some guys who can literally break stones. And I think he has that type of personality that he will get after it. He is not 0 to a 100. He is 100 all the time. I think that is what this defense lacks right now.
I also think that he'll help slot some players into some more defined roles and also allow Joey Bosa to play 50 to 60% of the snaps, because prior to his arrival to the scene, Joey Bosa was playing 70 to 80% of the snaps, and that was no one's plan way back when they signed him back in March. So I think that's also a big part where Michael Hoecht will help.
To that point, I think Bosa really has not been very good on first and second down against the run and stopping those plays. Not that he's been terrible, but I think the Bills can do better there. And I think Michael Hoecht is the type of guy that can be really good in that role. And now you push Joey Bosa to more of a pass rushing role, which he has been really good in. So I think it makes a lot of the pieces on this defensive line more sensible. And Larry Ogunjobi, we didn't talk about him at all. He is still a professional rotational body, which is not something this team has in a lot. So that by itself, I think, can also make a difference.
I mean, before his arrival this week, they were calling up someone from the practice squad every single game. So I think that inherently, like you just mentioned, he's a professional guy that's been on an active roster every single game of his career. That should provide them a boost on the D-line.
And this is a defense that has struggled to stop the run. Mm-hmm. So anybody that looks different than the bodies they have been running out there might be a better option.
Yeah, coming off the Bijan game, everything is going to help in this one. Sean McDermott today talked about how during the bye week, he was home, said he was kind of fidgety. His wife said, "You got to go in?" He said, "Yes, I do." How much does this team deserve to have a little bit of nerves? They've never lost 3 games in a row. I don't think any one of us thought this would be a big game even 3 weeks ago, let alone before the season started. But if they lose to Carolina for a 3rd time in a row, there will be many panic buttons being slammed in Western New York. Is this a season-defining game, or are we making too much of a 2-game losing streak?
I don't know if it's a season-defining game, but to add to your point of what Sean said, it was interesting because I asked Josh Allen, hey, do you feel like this team needs to get back to having more fun? And he was like, absolutely. And it starts with him. We've seen when they're on a roll, Josh Allen is out there and he's having fun. Look, I get it. You lose 2 games. It's not going to look very fun. Josh actually said that his grandma called him and said, "I want you to smile again." And Josh kind of laughed and said, "I understand that it's kind of a trickle-down effect. He is the leader. He knows that he's the guy that kind of sets the tone in that locker room."
And I also, going back to the Panthers game this week, yes, the results matter in terms of wins and losses, but the process, I think, is what's more important this week. You don't want to see Rico Dowdle or Chuba Hubbard run for 250. If they were to, let's say, limit them to 125 and the passing game looks much better this week, that's what I think is far more important. Obviously, a win is number one objective, but if they look good in the process and fix some of the things, or maybe not all the way, but you see where they can build towards it, that's what I'm looking forward to this Sunday.
I think that's a good point because, look, if they beat the Panthers, but it's ugly, I think there's still going to be a lot of fans out there and people in the media going, all right, there's still a lot to work on and a lot of issues with this team right now.
My buzzword is control. Look like your offense is under control. Look like you can have a team that's probably a couple weight classes below you under control. Have the game under control at the end, not having to hope that Matt Prater bangs a 50-yarder to win this thing. And I don't think, season-defining is not the right term. I do think that the season is kind of listing a little bit. The boat's taking on water and it's kind of off path. You lose this game, yeah, you might go further off path, but you can still right the ship later on. And I think this is an opportunity to get that ship back on the straight and narrow.
Is there a way, though, to win this game and really regain the confidence of this fan base? Because I'm not sure there is. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that if they beat the Panthers and then Kansas City at home and are 6-2, that the fan base still isn't going, well, we've seen them beat Kansas City in the regular season before. I mean, there are a lot of people that think the Bills should be winning the Super Bowl in September and October. And it's just, they've been so successful for so many years now that they're constantly chasing that standard.
I know what you're saying about the chunk of the fan base that every time Sean McDermott appears on social media, they turn around and say he should have been fired years ago. Like, those people I don't think you're going to satisfy. But if you win this game 34-3 and the Panthers run for 20 yards, yeah, I think there's a good chunk of the fan base, the sensible part, that will be like, okay, that was better. And if you beat Kansas City after that, no one will be like, all right, book my tickets for San Francisco in the Super Bowl. But that will still be a huge improvement from what we've seen the last couple of weeks.
I mean, like I said, if the process is sound and the things that you said back in the offseason that you wanted to be better at, you wanted to be better getting after the passer. If they sack Patrick Mahomes 3 times next week, they get down and make life miserable for Andy Dalton or Bryce Young, I think that's a way where you tell the fan base or you show the fan base, listen, this could look different in January because it's looking different in October, and that wasn't the case in previous seasons.
You talk about Andy Dalton or Bryce Young. I think yesterday we all thought it was going to be Andy Dalton, but on Wednesday, Bryce Young at least is appearing at practice without a boot on. Quite simply, does it matter to you which quarterback the Panthers play?
I don't think so. I think maybe Bryce Young presents a little bit of a different challenge because of his ability. He's a little more athletic, his ability to extend some plays. Then you've got Andy Dalton's a little more veteran. There's nothing that Sean's going to throw at him that he hasn't seen in the past. It's all going to come down to stopping their run game, no matter who the quarterback is.
I think it matters, but it won't be to a drastic degree where I'm concerned either way. I think if the point spread right now is like 7.5 with not knowing the quarterback, if Bryce Young's starting, the point spread's going down to 6.5. I don't think it's going to make some drastic difference because of the fact that he is mobile. Maybe 2 or 3 times a game, like Spencer Rattler did, he gets outside the pocket and creates stuff in that manner. But Bryce Young isn't Drake May. I'm not concerned in that way.
Look, if the difference in this game is Andy Dalton or Bryce Young, we are going to have next week is going to be a real problem.
I think that's the best way to sum it up. I'm with you guys. Carl, I don't even think the point spread moves, to be honest, depending on what quarterback it is. The Bills should be able to handle either one of the guys. I will say that the Bills have seen a steady diet of younger, newer quarterbacks. You think about, Michael Penix, Drake May, Spencer Rattler. Those guys might not have a 10th combined the amount of starting experience that Andy Dalton has. So it will be an entirely different challenge for this defense, but I do not think it matters one bit. All right, that's it for this edition of the BKL Nightly Roundtable. For Carl, I'm Josh. I'm Thad.